Hi, welcome Pebble friends and friends of Star Tracy too. I am so happy to tell you that I have a special guest today, Gail Gould, and she is basically an expert on CPR. She teaches it and shares the skills. And with us going into the summer season and knowing about the drownings and other potential dangers that can happen, I just thought it was the absolute perfect time to invite her on and ask her to share some things that any of us could do if the moment, God forbid, should come up. So, Gail, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today, Tracy. I'm so happy to be here.
So, what would you say is the chief thing that if someone just saw something where someone needed CPR, whether they've had a heart incident or, like I said, they've been pulled out of the pool or anything, and nobody really knows, and you're waiting on 911 to come, what would be the first thing someone should just feel like they could do and not make the situation worse?
Well, that's a good question. The first thing you want to do, obviously, is call 911. Always, or send someone to call 911. But, God forbid you pull someone out of a swimming pool that's had a near drowning accident. You want to check to see, after you've called 911, you check to see if they're breathing. If they're not breathing normally, if they're not breathing at all, you need to start chest compressions and breaths. Um, and I've seen a near drowning incident, and it was terrifying. It was very, very scary. But honestly, it all starts with prevention. So since we're on the subject of swimming, anybody that has a swimming pool in their backyard, if they have young children, they need two fences, one around the yard, one around the pool. Most toddlers drown in backyard residential swimming pools. And in Houston, where I live, when you're flying over Houston and you look down, all you see is water and swimming pools because it's so hot. And so it's very hot. It got very hot yesterday. And unfortunately, I expect to hear about the first drowning coming up, especially over Memorial Day weekend. There's always drownings over Memorial Day weekend. So prevention just plays a huge role. The other thing that, people think, oh, it's only bad moms that do this, but sometimes people forget they have children in the car and they leave the children in the car, and the car can heat up so quickly. So it's very important if you're shopping, if you're going somewhere, you're traveling, and you have young children, check the back seat to make certain you did not forget your child in the back seat. And I'll never forget, this was a long time ago. I think my son was probably maybe 9 months, and we were on vacation, and I had him in the little baby Bob stroller, and I had my dog, and I was exhausted. And we just came out of the grocery store, and I literally walked off with my groceries and left my dog and my baby sitting there. And it took me about maybe 40, 50 seconds. I was like, oh my God, I left them back at the grocery store. So it's not just bad moms. It's moms who are overwhelmed and busy. And so it really is all about prevention. And even with adults, it's about prevention. People, the main reason adults age 35 and up go into cardiac arrest is going to be heart attack. Heart disease is the number one killer here in the United States. And more people will die from heart disease than anything else. And heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing. So, a person having a heart attack is conscious. They are breathing, but they are conscious. They may be experiencing respiratory distress, but they are conscious. They are breathing. They do not need CPR. They need immediate medical attention, meaning someone needs to call 911. Don't drive them to the hospital. Person in cardiac arrest is not conscious. They're not breathing. They need immediate CPR, early defibrillation. So heart attack and cardiac arrest are not the same thing, but heart attack is the main reason that will cause adults age 35 and up to go into cardiac arrest. So you hear like in the media, oh, he had a massive heart attack. What they're really saying is he had a heart attack that caused him to go into cardiac arrest. And, honestly, Tracy, heart attack is mostly a preventable disease. I mean, obviously there are familial factors. If one person in your immediate family, first degree relative, has had a heart attack or a stroke and they were under the age of 55 if you're a man. If one person in your immediate family has had a heart attack or stroke and they were under the age of 65, if you're a woman, that means you have the family risk factor. You have the familiar risk factor. It doesn't mean you're definitely going to have a heart attack. It just means you're going to have to watch a little more closely. And obviously, the things you want to do to reduce your risk of having a heart attack is don't use any kind of tobacco. Even vaping is very, very, people think vaping is healthier. It's really not. Don't use any kind of tobacco. Manage your blood pressure, reduce your cholesterol, get physically active. Even a very modest weight loss can have a significant impact on someone's health. And then the final risk factor that I don't think a lot of people know about is loneliness. We now know that people that are lonely, people feel socially isolated, they don't feel emotionally or socially connected to others around them, are much more likely to die from a heart attack. And interestingly enough, some of those studies on loneliness were actually done here in Houston, Texas in the 1980s by a childhood friend of mine, Dean Ornish. And he's a internationally renowned cardiologist, New York best time-selling author, and some very wealthy Houstonians funded his research. But yeah, we don't know, people that are lonely, people who are socially, emotionally connected, are much more likely to die from a heart attack. So heart attack is not some willy-nilly thing that happens to people. You have a lot of control over whether you have a heart attack or not.
And that's such a good reminder because I do feel like at times we just think, oh, that's just a given. Like you become a certain age or whatever, and it's just a risk we have. And the reminder that there are things that we can do
Oh,
any
absolutely.
day, every day. And I love that you brought up the loneliness because I know that that also with older adults, it contributes to lots of disease. And we forget that, especially with like our real elders, like our 80, my grandmother, when she was in her 80s and 90s, when she lived alone past when her social group had started to pass, we saw a huge decline in her. And that's why we brought her into our house because she no longer had all those friends and such surrounding
Look
her.
forward to be with. Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously tobacco use and lung cancer. They know what caused your lung cancer if you're a smoker. Maybe sun exposure and melanoma, but most forms of cancer, no one knows for sure what caused it. When someone gets breast cancer, you can't say, well, it's because you drank wine or because you did. No one knows for sure. Or colon cancer. Everybody is in agreement about what causes heart disease. And what causes heart disease are all those things we just talked about: tobacco use, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, physical inactivity, um, uh, being grossly overweight, and then being lonely. So it's pretty clear. Now, again, there is a familial risk factor, but those people
Right.
doesn't mean they're definitely going to have a heart attack. It just means that they're going to have to watch it a little bit
Well,
more.
all the more reason to be alert on all of those five things you listed. If there's a familial, even more so, you need to be aware of that. So
Yeah.
let's say that someone has gone into cardiac arrest. You said chest compressions, and I know for a lot of people, um, they feel like they need to have had a class, which I know classes are great, and I'm all for them when you can have them. But let's say you haven't had that opportunity. Should that person feel like they can still help?
Absolutely. All you need to do is to press hard and fast in the center of the chest. That's all you need to do. Tracy, there's two ways to do CPR. Now, there's compression plus ventilation, meaning compression with breathing, which everybody knows about because I've seen it on TV. Then there's what we call hands-only CPR, and that's CPR with no breathing, and that's what we're recommending out in the community. I don't know about you, but I know I'm much more likely to administer CPR to someone I don't know if I know I don't have to put my mouth on them. And
Exactly.
it's panicky when this stuff happens. Trust me, I've been there. It's very panicky. And just literally all the person has to do is compress, push on the chest very hard and very fast until advanced help arrives. The last thing you want to do when someone loses consciousness and stop breathing, the last thing you want to do is go run for help. Because when you're running for help, their brain is dying. The brain only has about 4 minutes before it starts to die. Without blood and oxygen, your brain starts to die after about
Wow.
4 minutes. So while you're running for help, their brain is dying. So it's
You
always
need that
best.
blood moving in. That's why
Yes,
you
yes.
get
And
someone
that's
else if you can to call 911 and then you start, or if you have to call 911, you get the call going and then immediately, but don't run.
Yes.
Don't leave that
Do
person.
not do not. In fact, that happened to a very distant relative of mine a couple months ago. He went into cardiac arrest. His wife had no idea what to do, no clue. So what did she do? She ran for help. So I have no idea how long she was gone. Maybe she was gone maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes. By the time she got back, who knows how long he'd been laying there. So once he finally got to the hospital, I mean, she didn't even call 911. Once he got to the hospital, they told us, well, all of his other organs are fine except for his brain. He was brain dead because he laid there so long without blood flow to his brain. So it was very sad. It was very, very sad. But everybody needs to know how to do this. And honestly, the people you're most likely to be using CPR on are family members and friends.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely the people you're most likely to be using on. And I think that statistic now, the American Heart has new numbers. 485,000 people will suffer a sudden cardiac arrest this year in the United States, and
So
only about
almost 500,000 people will
yes,
in this
and only
just
8 to
one year.
10% survive. Not
And
very
we got to
many
fix
people
that
survive.
number. We've got to do what we can. So when you say chest compressions, I remember seeing something like we have to press really hard, right? Like, don't worry about
Yeah,
hurting them. You need
that's
to,
exactly right. Do not worry about hurting the victim. And that's one reason people stop CPR, because when they're compressing, they hear something pop or crack, and they go, oh no, I'm hurting the victim. Don't worry about hurting the victim. It's better off to have a couple cracked ribs or cracked sternum than death.
right.
So yeah, if you interview people who receive CPR, they'll tell you they feel like they've been in a bar fight. I mean, I've cracked my sternum and 4 or 5 ribs. It's not a big deal. It heals in 4 to 6 weeks. I didn't crack them during CPR. It was a motor vehicle accident, but it heals in 4 to 6 weeks. And I'll tell you what, the sternum hurt a lot more. That was a lot more painful than the ribs.
But they can fix that. They know how to fix broken bones. If you keep that brain alive with the blood
Right,
pumping, they're around to do that. And
right.
that's
And
a really good
interesting,
reminder. So don't stop. If you hear a pop, keep going. That's not hurting them anymore because they're going to be dead. And if they're dead, they can't complain about a broken bone. So just keep
uh,
going.
And interestingly enough, less than 50% of Americans know how to perform CPR. Not very many people know how to perform CPR. And that's one of the reasons why survival rates are so low. Survival rates for sudden cardiac arrest, on average, are only 8 to 10%. So put another way, you go into cardiac arrest outside the hospital, your chance of dying is 90 to 92%.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so
That's
it's
just
it's low.
terrifying. We
It's
can do better. So you told me that you have a webinar coming up that
yes,
I'd love to share the information on that so that people can, if they want to go further than just knowing to
yes.
do the chest compression. So if you'll share that with us.
Absolutely. My webinar is on Friday, June 6th, noon, Central Standard Time. And I'm going to try and have it on Instagram and Facebook both. But so far, it's just going to be on Instagram. And I'm really going to focus in on hands only CPR
I love that.
because that is just something that you can so easily teach virtually. And what was interesting is that, when the pandemic started, Tracy, I had clients who have to have CPR cards. Medical offices have to have CPR cards. Preschools have to have CPR cards. And so we started teaching CPR in Zoom. And even American Heart Association authorized it. They're like, go ahead and teach on Zoom. Now they don't want you to teach on Zoom, which is fine. But I still do Zoom classes. In fact, I just did one this last Saturday, and some people actually like it more. But so people think, well, I don't want to do it virtually. But honestly, the webinar, you will learn what to do. God forbid someone loses consciousness and stops breathing. I'll probably demonstrate how to use an automated external defibrillator. I will show what to do if someone starts choking, how to help that person as well. But these are all just basic things that all Americans need to know how to do.
I
And
love that. Yes. And so we will share that links here in below the video in the about. So look down, and definitely want people to check that out because, as you said, we all should know this. And 9 out of 10 times you're not going to need it, right? But you want to be the person who has it if that 1 out of 10 chance
well,
right in front of you happens and you could save a life. And is there anything more amazing than having a skill? in the back of your head, hoping you'll never have to use it, but manages to save a life. I mean,
Well, I tell people at the beginning of each class, CPR class, I tell people, I hope you never ever have to use any what you're going to learn here today. But boy, if you need to know it, you want to know what to do. I mean, this was at the beginning of the pandemic. I met a loving mom who lost her 8-month-old to choking. And one of my clients introduced me to her, and she told me what happened was that her 8-month-old was choking. She had no idea what to do, no clue. So she ran to the neighbor's house to get help. By
oh,
the time she got home,
it was too
not
late.
trying to trigger anyone, but the time
No,
she
no.
got home,
Well, my son almost choked in front. I mean, he was choking and right in front of me, and I remembered, fortunately, in that moment, what my pediatrician had taught me, the various things. And I mean, I went down the list because it wasn't coming up. It was one of those teething biscuits, and he had just started to get top teeth, and I didn't realize, and so he was able to break off a piece. And I'm in the kitchen. He's at I mean, he was just a few feet from me in the high chair. And I noticed it got really quiet. And I thank God in all sincerity. I mean, it was just one of those moments where that whisper in your head went, he's really quiet. And his eyes were saucers. And I had to get him out of the chair. And I was going through I first did this, and that was where, I went through the whole list. And thank God, like literally, he finally dislodged it. And I can remember every precise second of what couldn't have been even a minute, obviously, because he was fine. He had no, health repercussions at all. So it couldn't have been, minutes. But
right.
in my head, it was like
Well,
to
thank goodness you knew what to do.
yes. And so I love that we're going to be teaching that you're going to be teaching that. I think you are exactly why I do the Pebble is because you are literally sharing the ability for people to save the people they love. And what
Oh,
is more of a blessing than that? So we'll definitely share the link to your webinar and your other things. So if they don't get to make it to the webinar, they can still learn from you. And I just want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your
thank you.
information.
Thank you. The other thing I did want to share since we're talking about choking, Tracy, is I do have a digital course called How to Help Your Choking Child. And this
Oh,
is a
amen.
digital course that's meant for parents, grandparents, caregivers, and teachers. And it teaches them exactly what to do in case your child starts choking. And I
We
was
should all then learn it because we're all going to be around children. So I recommend that course to everyone. I'm going to make sure to show it to my daughter who babysits. And, one day I'm going to be a grandmom, not rushing it at all, but one day I will, and I'll have little ones around me again. So I think everyone should learn that, whether or not you have kids right now or not. You might be the person in Chick-fil-A or at some other restaurant that saves somebody's life. So,
There was a Chick-fil-A employee about 6 months ago who administered choking relief to a child in the drive-through line.
see right there, and imagine, and it's funny that the Chick-fil-A was what came to my head. Well, thank you again, and we'll make sure to share all of what you have available and get them to see you because you are a blessing in this world.
Oh,
And
thank
thank you for being a guest on the Pebble. And I want to tell my audience rather that Gail is going to come back and we're going to share her story as a person actively being a Pebble, but we really just felt like we had to get this information out ASAP because you too can save a life. And we want to thank you, my guest, Gail Gould.